Cypher is the most picked and powerful sentinel in the game right now. So in today's video, I'm gonna teach you how to master him for yourself. With that being said, let's get right into it. First, let's talk about his camera. Now his camera is great for getting information, however it is easy to shoot, so you don't want to put it in super obvious spots or the enemy will just break it. Instead, there are a few different ways to use it. Number 1, for early info. This camera is thrown up at the beginning of a round to see the enemies before they start pushing onto site. Number 2, the hidden camera. This type of camera is extremely powerful. You want to hide your camera in a spot that allows you to see all of sight, getting information for yourself and your team without it being easy to spot or break. It can be very useful on retakes or if you are ratting on site. When using this camera, do not shoot the enemy with it because they'll just break it. Instead, look at them and ping them out so you can give info and save your camera. Number 3, the info gatherer. This type of camera is used to collect info for an area of the map that you are not on. For example, if you're playing B, you can set your camera up in mid to get information for your team. This camera should be used situationally and can be very powerful if used correctly. When attacking, you want to use your camera to either gather information when entering onto site. You can do this by putting your camera over a smoke or in the corner of the site to quickly ping the enemies out. It can also be used to check rat corners if necessary. Another way to use your camera on attack is early round. You can place it in mid or in other areas to gather information, or you can save it for post plant to help you get information without risking your life. If you set it up post plant, try not to shoot the enemy too early with it, as if you do, they will break it. Instead, check it constantly to see where they are. When it comes to those cages, there are a lot of different ways you can use them. Number 1, you can throw one-ways with them. Here are some good examples. Number 2, you can throw corner cages to hide in, or you can use them to cut off lines of sight and allow you to spray down an enemy when they hit your trip or help you reposition when you were spotted out. Cages should be used differently depending on how the game is going. However, the main goal is to cut off lines of sight and use them to get the most out of your trips, as the enemy will show up in red through the cage for you to shoot, or they will make noise when they enter into it, giving you information and allowing you to spray them down. Now on attack, this is where the cages can be tricky. You can learn lineups to cut off lines of sight like a controller agent, or you can keep them in your back pocket and use them for yourself by throwing them down and playing around them, either walking through them and peeking out to catch the enemy off guard, or throwing it down and walking around it to do the same. They can also be used to help you reposition and get out of danger. Also, keep in mind the duration of the cage is 7 seconds, the same amount of time it takes to defuse the spike. So if you throw your cage down, pop it, and start to defuse, you will be covered for just enough time to stick the bomb. The most powerful piece of utility Cypher has is his trips. Now, although they are strong, they can be easily countered by agents like Sova, KO, Raze, or anyone with AoE damage, so you need to be careful how you use them. If you're playing against one of these agents, it's best not to put your trip right on the entry of sight, as they will most likely be broken. Instead, you can either hold your trips until they use their utility, then use a cage to cover yourself and throw them down, or you can use them deeper in sight so the utility misses them completely. Now, there are an endless amount of Cypher setups, so I'm not going to cover them in this video. Instead, you can look some up if you want, or follow these tips to create your own. You always want to have a trip on the site you are holding. The position of your trip should change every round, as the enemy will learn where they are and avoid them. Your second trip can either cover mid or a part of the map no one is watching to gather information and allow your team to group up more. Or you can place the second one on the site with you, but this is all situational. You want to try your best to throw unbreakable trips. This means the enemy cannot shoot them unless they get onto site. Of course, if you're playing against an AoE agent, don't. Instead, throw them in spots that are hard to see. This way the enemy is more likely to run into them. Yo, what's good gamers? If you're enjoying this video so far, consider hitting that sub button. It would mean a lot if you did. If not, no worries. Much love, guys. You can also mess with the height of your trips. If you are throwing a classic entry trip or info trip, make sure it is eye level with you when you are crouched. This way they can't crouch under it or jump it without utility. Now, some trips can be thrown right on the ground. Most people miss these and walk right into them. These should only be done for trips that are on site, not covering entry points. You can also throw them up high if you know a jet or raise is going to do an aerial entry. Again, once you place your trips one round and they've seen it, switch up your trip placement the next round. You can always go back to it, but do not do the same trips 2 rounds in a row. When you are attacking, you need to always be tripping both flanks. This way you can get information for your team and cover flank. And in pre-round, you have more than enough time to do this, so make sure that you are. When placing flank trips, make sure they cannot be jumped or crouched under. So line them up eye level when you crouch, and watch for points on the map that allow the enemy team to jump them. For example, on Haven, depending if you are pushing A or you are using it for info, the trip will have to be different. When it comes to Cypher's ult, there are a few different ways you can use it. Number 1, to gather information for your team early round. If you get a kill and you don't know where the enemy team is going to push, you can ult the body to find them. This should only be done when you are on an eco round or when the enemy team is ahead and you need to win the round. Number 2, use the ult when you are down in numbers to figure out what you need to do. This is the most common time to use it and should be done whenever the chance arises. And number 3, ult the body when you're in a clutch situation. This is the most optimal time to use his ult. It will allow you to get all the information you need to come up with the best way to win your clutch. However, if situation 2 pops up first, use it. Do not hold your ult for a clutch, as it may never come. Now, attacking on Cypher is where most people go wrong. Your main job is to cover flank. Once you have your trips up, more times than not, you should be lurking around the map trying to catch timings and get easy kills. You don't want to be constantly running it down with your team. Now, when you go to lurk, make sure you always let your team know. If you don't, they may fast push and you will be too far out of position to help. In order to lurk properly, you want to always take your time, watch the minimap, and wait for the right time to move. A good rule of thumb is do not expose yourself until your team has been spotted by the enemy team. Once they have, you can slowly work your way up. This will allow you to hear the enemy rotating and give information to your team for a rotate or get a free kill. If you go too early, you will be spotted out. If you wait too long, you will be too late. This is a skill that takes time, and you need to experiment with it to figure it out. Make sure that you're always using the information you get each round to see how the enemy team plays. If they usually fast rotate, you can move quicker. If they don't rotate at all, you need to play slower. Lurking is a game of chess, and the more information you use, the better chance you have of winning. Also, similar to his trips, when lurking, you do not want to do the same thing twice. So if you fast lurk one round, go slower the next. If you lurk mid one round, go B the next. Sometimes don't lurk. Then go back and forth between the things that are working, but never do the same thing 2 rounds in a row. This will make you unpredictable and extremely powerful. Cypher isn't only good on defense, he is great on attack as well. However, because he is a sentinel, his main job is to hold down sight and trip flank on attack. So always make sure you are doing those. Other than that, you can experiment with him and find a playstyle that works best for you. And if you want to improve your aim to make sure you never lose a duel when you lurk, go ahead and check out this video next.